"Ho, ho, come now," scoffed Sir Gallivant. "Don't tell me my noble high-stepping steed has turned into a chicken." No horse can stand to be called a chicken, not even such a cowardly one as Clyde. So with an angry snort, he headed on into the gloomy woods. Hello again, and welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, and today in the first of a special series I'll be doing and continuing on for as long as I feel like it, I'm going to be defending a certain character or element or film that I feel like needs a defense against some of the perceptions that have cropped up around it, or just maybe needs a voice in its corner.
Well, objection, hearsay.
Wait, you asked the question.
Oh.
Next question.
Okay.
And so as you can see by the title, I'm beginning at the very beginning of Disney animation, talking about the prince from Snow White. Roll the intro.
Oh, what's so goddamn funny?
Essentially, this video, and maybe this whole subsequent series, was inspired by me watching 2025 Snow White and really missing the element of the prince and the subsequent romance and songs that he provided, but the element of the prince from the original. As bagged on as he is by a lot of people who compare him to the modern princes, at least he is a prince, you know.
I can't accept this.
So anyway, let's get into it.
Anyway.
First of all, let's talk about the popular perception of the prince. So why does the prince from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs get so much stick? It's because mainly he doesn't appear in the film very much. Now, this is something that I find so interesting, is that I understand a character being underused. Like, you know, I understand a plot element being underdeveloped. I do understand that criticism. But when the appearance of the character in the story that is there, the amount that does exist in the film is so good, as with the prince in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, as with Prince Charming in Cinderella, who may also get a future video in this series to himself, as with Aurora in Sleeping Beauty, as with a lot of characters who have shorter screen times than some people would like them to have. I always think it's kind of a hollow criticism to say they're a bad character simply because they didn't appear on screen enough. It's one thing to say that they could have been better. It's another thing to say they're just out and out not enjoyable or not very good because they weren't in that many scenes. And so I kind of get that argument, but I kind of disagree at the same time. And I think that you just have to judge them a little bit more by what they actually do on screen rather than maybe their lack of more screen time. But anyway, that's kind of the main complaint. And also, he doesn't have a name. He's unnamed, so he's a little harder to kind of identify with. He doesn't have a developed character. He's really only in 2 scenes, a few moments of the film. But this is the genius of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, 1937, is that it does so much with so little. And this is what we don't give the film credit for overall sometimes, is that every element of it is done well in its own way, even if it's so incredibly simplistically done. I mean, obviously, this is Disney inventing the blueprint for this type of film, not only for themselves, but for many people going forward. The sort of princess story and Western media in the last 100 years has been so completely dominated, shaped by, and affected by the Disney princess brand and the Disney princess tradition. And Snow White started it all, and so many of the tropes are right here from the very beginning. The charismatic, theatrical villain.
Stop that. You're not going into a song while I'm here.
The charismatic, theatrical villain.
Magic mirror on the wall. Who now is the fairest one of all?
The innocent young heroine, the action-filled sequences, the heavy plot involving attempted murder, the adorable animals, the hilarious sidekicks that save the day, the incredible music, and then, of course, the prince. The charming, handsome prince. And this is just the thing, is that I think that it's a bit silly to say all of those other elements are done well and the prince isn't done well. He might not be your favorite part of the movie, But I do think that the prince from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is done well in his own way, and I'm going to talk about exactly why. Another criticism is just that this film is old, and people don't want to give the really old ones any credit. People like Rachel Zegler are going to say, you know, it's from 1937 and very evidently so, and he literally stalks her.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
Which is just so not true and so hollow and so uninformed, and we've all gone over it a million billion times how wrong she was to say that. But it's just not representative of who the character is. So he's been retroactively called Florian, but I'm not really going to refer to him as Florian in this video. I'm just going to call him the Prince. But anyway, he specifically, this character, has been so disrespected by Rachel Zegler especially, and then replaced by this just wet blanket of a nothing character in Jonathan in the new one, that I really wanted to get into defending him in particular, because I honestly do think he's becoming quite underrated as a Disney character in general now. A lot due to Rachel Zegler herself. So I want to start sort of scraping the muck back off his name and give him his due again as such a great, iconic romantic lead, the very first one that they ever did. So that's essentially it. People think that he's creepy for stalking her, even though that's not what happened, that he kisses her without consent, even though that's not how true love's kiss works. That's another thing that I've already debunked in another video. I'm not even going to go into it. People don't like it because it's old-fashioned. People don't like sort of the old-fashioned way of singing that Harry Stockwell did, and I'm going to get into Harry Stockwell in a minute and how great he is. People don't like how brief his screen time is, and people don't like that he doesn't have as much character to him, that all he does is meet Snow White and they fall in love at first sight. People don't like love at first sight anymore. They don't like that, and then that he comes in and saves the day by kissing her and doesn't actually do anything in the finale, unlike maybe, you know, say Philip in Sleeping Beauty. People don't like that his role is so simple, but I actually think that there is real beauty in that simplicity, and I think that the prince really represents almost like an angel returning to Snow White to take her away. And some people think that Snow White is actually dead at the end of the film, and he is an angel taking her to heaven, but I think he is symbolically, metaphorically an angel taking her to heaven, and heaven is the rest of her life in happiness with him, and he is her angel. So I think that the prince does have sort of a biblical interpretation too, where he's very symbolic of this life that Snow White can have if she can get back to him and find him again. And that's why he isn't in the middle of the film, because he sort of bookends the film as the goal that she wants and then the goal that she gets. And it's this sort of beautiful coming together of these two elements, and he has to bookend it, and he can't really appear in the middle. It's not sort of a full love affair, falling in love deeply over the course of an afternoon, talking to each other a little bit, singing together, just sort of being in each other's presence like Aurora and Philip do. It's not a whole evening dancing together like Cinderella and Prince Charming have. It's not sort of hours and hours together like those two couples have. It's one moment, and sort of they fall in love at first sight, boom, they sing a little bit, and then he's gone, and then he comes back at the very end and administers true love's kiss, and it's like, yes, it was true love, and it validates that moment at the beginning where their eyes meet there, and she sends the dove down, and the dove kisses him. It's just so beautiful and so pure, and I actually am happy that he doesn't appear in any other parts of the film, because he is such a beautiful bookend to it. So those are the criticisms. That's part of my rebuttal to it, that I actually like the simplicity of his part and the bookending nature of his role in the story.
I like it a lot.
It also makes him such a different prince to Prince Charming or Prince Philip, where Prince Charming is just sort of the ultimate romantic lead that she spends this whole evening with, and then sends his men out to search for her. Prince Philip is the action hero that goes up against the dragon, and then this prince in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is the ethereal prince. He is the one that represents an angel that comes to her and foretells of her happiness later on, and then he's the angel that then returns and kisses her and wakes her up and brings her to that happiness, that glory, that heaven of the rest of her life. So I think there is a very sort of angelic symbolism to him, especially in the way that he's portrayed as being so open and shining and arriving on a white horse. I think it's just very much, the prince gives me angel vibes. Another point in its favor is Harry Stockwell. Let's talk about Harry Stockwell. This is not a man that had a very extensive career on screen. He only appeared in a few films, and this is his only notable voice role, but he absolutely knocked it out of the park as the prince. He is incredible in his singing and in his few lines. I think he has like 2 lines of dialogue. I like the way he speaks them. He's got a lovely, lovely, soft, kind sort of voice. I'll play the clips now.
Hello. Oh. Did I frighten you? Wait. Wait, please. Don't run away.
And then his singing is just otherworldly. It is angelic. The way that he sings one song is just... oh.
Now that I've found you, hear what I have to say.
It makes my heart melt. It's the perfect first Prince voice. It's the perfect counterpart to Adriana Casalotti's voice as the first princess, as Snow White. They pair together so beautifully. The two of them just absolutely gorgeous voices blending together. I adore those two. Oh, I've already talked at length about how much I love Adriana Casalotti's performance as Snow White, but Harry Stockwell as the prince, his voice is just exactly what you'd imagine a fairy tale prince's voice to sound like. If you were to go back to 1937, he is the pitch-perfect personification of what you would want a romantic fairy tale prince's voice to sound like in song. It is so strong and baritone, yet soft, masculine, yet caring, tender, kind, reassuring, romantic. It's just so warm and lovely and everything that it should be. I cannot praise Harry Stockwell's performance enough.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
He was an interesting guy. He was more of a Broadway guy, I think. He took over as the second, maybe, Curly in Oklahoma and did it for quite a few years. But he was definitely a Curly in Oklahoma on Broadway. As with Snow White, he is the origination of the Disney prince trope. And he does it beautifully. They did a great job designing him. He's not got the best design ever for a prince, but it is very nice for what it is. It's just sort of plain and simple and lovely and classic and open, and just, he looks friendly and kind. I love the way that they make him move so smoothly. The rotoscoping in this film is just really quite impressive, even still today. And they've given him sort of lovely proportions. I know that they had a lot of trouble animating men, which is why there's very few men in the film. That's also part of the reason why the prince's part was cut down so much, and they cut out the prince being captured by the queen, which they then put in the remake, and they also originally put in Sleeping Beauty. But yeah, and then they cut out of Maleficent. They actually swapped them in the remakes. But even though they excised the story beat of the prince being captured by the queen and just have him at the beginning and the end, because of their difficulty animating men, I still think he is really well designed and animated. I think that they just limited it to his 2 scenes and the huntsman because it was really, really hard to do, but they still did a good job. I think this prince is just a great blueprint. He's not the best ever, but he's always going to be the original. He's like the William Hartnell Doctor. He's not the best, but he's always a dependable option. He's just really classic.
Nerd.
I love how sensitively he interacts with Snow White. How he doesn't push her, but simply presents his one song of true love to her and asks if she might accept it. And the one true love song that he does present is so incredible. Not only does Stockwell sing it well, but one song is just... it is timeless. Such a gorgeous, timeless, perfect melody. I absolutely adore the writing of the songs in this film. There's a reason that the music has endured for so long. Snow White's great. Of course, his greatest virtue is perhaps delivering such a picture-perfect true love's kiss to save Snow White. While it isn't quite as impressive as defeating Maleficent like Philip does and then having his own kiss, or saving Rapunzel from Gothel's control like Flynn and then getting his one true tear of love. But the prince in Snow White kissing her to wake her up is still, after all these years, an enormously effective and classic ending, as unforgettably gorgeous now as it was in 1937. And the prince deserves at least partial credit for making that moment happen and being a big part of it. Perhaps the key part of it. I had it in my script to talk about the negatives now, but I've actually already kind of gone over the negatives at the beginning and debunked or just combated them in my own way. But yeah, we've talked about the things that people talk about with him, the shorter screen time, all that, so I don't need to go over that again. And really, I guess I'll just compare him to Jonathan in the remake. Jonathan in the remake, I don't remember that actor's name, but I don't really care at this moment.
Andrew Burnap, great dude.
I'm sorry, my friend, but
I'll be back in 2 days. And together, we'll go to the Southern Kingdom and we'll find your father.
he never had a chance. He doesn't have a good song. He's just sort of a pale 2025 imitation of Wesley from Princess Bride.
There's something I ought to tell you. Tell me.
I'm not left-handed either.
And it's just nothing like as charming as something like that. It really isn't anything to write home about. For one thing, True Love's Kiss was like True Love's peck, basically. But their whole thing, he had no chemistry with her. Who could have chemistry with Rachel Zegler? I don't know anybody who could have on-screen chemistry with Rachel Zegler, but
Weird.
They didn't have any chemistry. Their love story is not believable. Their song is not fun at all. He's just a real Timu Wesley, and he's perfectly shaven in the woods. It just didn't look right. It didn't sound right. The performance wasn't anything like as masculine or tender or compelling as Harry Stockwell's original. He's just such an amazing prince in 1937, and Jonathan in the 2025 remake just does not deliver on any of that amazing timeless romance or masculinity or sensitivity or just any of it. He's just snarky and boring and doesn't have any real chemistry with Snow White at all, so
I can't accept this.
in conclusion, I just think that people really underrate a lot of things from this era in Disney and in general, but especially as it pertains to Disney animation. They underrate a lot of these elements of these films. And one thing that I see consistently picked on is the prince from Snow White and the prince from Cinderella. And so I just thought I'd come in here and do one about each of them to start this series, and then look for other elements of other films or other films entirely that I think have been quite unjustly negatively seen and judged by a lot of people, and that might deserve a little bit more of a defense in their corner, as much as I can give them. So there you are, that's the initial video in this series. Thank you so very much for joining me today, and if you're still here, good night, good luck, and
We are the Toronto public. We want to shop.
That's all.